The most important one that we're looking for here is the critical mass. Anytime we start to see critical mass at any event, we are seeing a precursor to violence. Any event can turn. We see it in sporting events all the time. Celebration. Why has it become acceptable that if your particular team wins their championship, that it's acceptable to go and riot and break cars and smash windows and start fires? It's become almost acceptable that that happens. Sorry?
Because we'll have to promote it. Yeah.
All right, loss of security space. When the crowd starts to close in on the police lines. Now there might be a security zone, and quite frankly, some of them are actually very funny, because if you've got a secure area that's fenced, you're securing a building. For instance, you've got the meetings of the heads of state are going to meet in a particular building, so you've got a giant security fence around that area. Well, the protesters go out there and measure off, and they paint on the road. It's very funny to see. They'll measure off X number of feet and spray paint blue and mark WC, effective range of water cannon. Then they'll measure off a few more paces with red, PB, pepper ball.
That's organized.
That's organized.
Yeah,
So you want to know what's better than that? The copper that goes out in the middle of the night with his blue spray paint measures off 25 feet short mark. Nobody sees. And those things have happened. But those are the kinds of things. So you get the group, well, which line is it? I think it's out. Okay. Up they go. But water cannons are really ineffective. They work really well in cold weather. They work the best when the spray is about that far off the ground. And that's the problem that you see when they spray a guy, a 200-pound man getting sprayed in the chest with a water cannon, gets wet. It might knock him down, but you take his feet out, does an awful lot more. The problem is the water cannons are always behind the fences. And the chain link fence disperses the spray, and down low is where the cement barrier is. And so water cannons, they have limited use. What we saw in G8, the water cannons, man, I'll tell you what, they just got people wet. Cool them off. Cool them off. You get 35 Celsius. You get 90-degree weather. They're thanking you.
Yep.
You know, that's all they're going to thank you for. Yeah. Property damage, graffiti, escalation, glass smashing, arsons, things like that. We'll get into this a little later. I'll probably repeat myself a few times. But watch for these kinds of things. Watch for property damage. But also, getting the bigger picture. When we start to see things like international events, we have protesters coming from a lot of different places to Calgary to protest G8. Well, they don't know where the federal building is. They don't know where the police headquarters is. They don't know where the U.S. consulate is. But they do know what that pink ribbon around the telephone pole means, because any building that is of interest to them has pink ribbons around the pole out in front. Red hands painted onto the sidewalk. Black X's, things like that. We don't necessarily know what the black X means. We don't know what the red hand means. We just know that that's there. And that's part of getting the bigger picture, starting to understand that, okay, they've identified all of our buildings, because all of the political or government buildings have pink ribbons wrapped around poles up in front. So what do? We take them down. It's another thing that happens. End up with pink ribbons around every building. Being aware of your surroundings, also understand that during the Red Mile we had protest groups, rather we had the fans that were trying to push onto the roadway. And as we stood with our bikes there, we're fighting with this group of people in front. Not them doing it. They're being pushed by the brave, drunk idiot 5 back. So they're the ones. So understanding that if you start whacking on the guy in the front there who's being squeezed between your bike and the people behind, you're not really dealing with the problem. And they can't go anywhere. You get the crowds, when you get 70,000, 50,000 people, you're outnumbered. They have it. So you need to work within it. You need to fold and mold so that they're doing what you want because they think they're doing what they want. And so if it means giving up the road, give up the road. What are they going to do with it? Giving up the road just prevents other issues. During Red Mile, every single bike officer was hit by a car. Every one of us. I mean, you couldn't help it. People, cars, on the same road, no room to move. People that bump you as you went by, you'd fall over into the path of a car. Thank God the cars could only do 1 mile per hour. But when they ended up taking the road, it eliminated the problem of cars. So it's a mentality. Not giving up the road is a mentality. If you give them the road, well, give them more room. They'll leave. They don't have to work. What does it mean for us? Cha-ching. Okay. The alerts members in the crowd are wearing protective equipment or masked. Backpacks, big issue. Protesters wear backpacks for a number of reasons. Carry their stuff in for the big one. But they also carry it because they've learned a method that they use to defeat bikes. One of the methods they use to defeat bikes is to fill a backpack up with junk, and when the bike cops set up their fence, they scooch on their ass towards the bikes, and they've got this protected backpack to prevent them from things like pedals and chain rings and handlebars. So we have to work within that, but nonetheless, a lot of times they'll carry backpacks with nothing in it at all but cloth, just to protect themselves. They also use it as a turtle shell. So if they are into an area where things are happening, where water is being deployed or pepper balls or whatnot, they can just turn and hide behind their pack. People walking down the street with backpack on, you can hear the sloshing, or you can smell the gas. Obviously, that's a no-brainer. Tactics of the crowd: embarrassing the police, weaken the lines, deplete resources, swarming. Other tactics. And I'll tell you what, they use bikes, they use radios, they use scouts, they do area sweeps, distance lines we talked about. When they're on a snake march, they'll send their bike guys out. They'll send their bike guys forward. Find a nice spot for us to go for a walk. I mean, if they don't have enough local people, they'll send some of their people out. Okay, we've got a Shell building at 4th Avenue, 4th Street. Use radios. We'll send people out, we'll send the coppers out with them. We had one guy go on a ride for about 2 hours. One of our guys rode with him. It's like one of the tactics they use for embarrassing the police. It's called SPAT. SPAT, and that's Strategic Peace Action Teams. This started to rear its head in Washington, where they would make a ceremonial arrest. During protest days and times, they'd see a member of the military and they would ceremonially arrest him for violating the human rights of people throughout the world. Some are now playing into that and allowing these spats to occur for the cameras and then moving on. One of the tactics that they use quite often, SPAT teams are doing this quite often, is allowing people of limited intelligence, whether they are actually mentally challenged or not. Sometimes they use children with Down syndrome or young adults with Down syndrome or very, very old people. What they will do is they will set up the cops. The cops will be standing doing what they do best, where they'll stand like this, and if they get the hands by the side, this person will come and handcuff them. What's the first reaction, you think? You stand in there and someone comes up behind and throws a cuff on you. You're likely going to strike out. Probably an elbow strike or a push or something. Imagine the photo op for it. Big ass policeman pushing a young 15-year-old with Down syndrome. Or an 85-year-old woman. This isn't all 19 to 22-year-old guys or 19 to 22-year-old people. They have all sorts, and they've done that. And we've seen video footage of policemen pushing to the ground people with Down syndrome. But what happened before? Well, we don't know. We can only imagine. We hear the stories. Guy came up behind me and poked a really sharp something in my arm. I don't know what it was. I felt something poked in my arm. I turned around and I struck out. They're all standing with their cameras waiting for that moment. Swarming. Swarming happens in a couple of ways. They'll swarm vehicles, they'll swarm coppers. We had trying to remember where it was. We had coppers in Suburbans. Two white Suburbans stopped and got swarmed. The policemen managed to get out and run. They were our SWAT guys, screaming like little girls. Anyway. Anyway, it was very funny. Do you know who we are? Anyway, very funny because this swarm of people envelop these Suburbans, and then they move on, and the other side, it's just like out of The Simpsons. These things are tagged and written on, and flat tires, and things hang off. And it's not funny because it's bad, but it's funny because we have black humor, and we're allowed to do that. It's caustic humor, sort of like the guy who did the junk thing. Here we go. In Ottawa, spring of 2002, two Suburbans full of cops. So it was Ottawa, Canada. That's not a bad story. We've had bad stories though, where policemen who are doing traffic control will get swarmed and beaten. And we've had that happen as well. So we need to be cautious about that, and that's what we talk about that at the beginning. You never work in groups less than 4. And this guy was just doing traffic control. Protest rally going by, a splinter group that was all agitated and angry. It was just like any other kind of mob mentality. They just grabbed them and beat them up. So something to keep in mind. There we are. Okay. So then, click. Neutrality. The most important part of this is being neutral. Keeping our personal views and opinions out of the mix. Keeping our personal views and opinions to ourselves. With no idea how many opportunities they will take to try and get you to make a statement. We have heard the recordings so many times. They use boom mics. They use the great big funnel parabolic mics and stuff. And they also have things in their pocket. The number of times you get these comments, and you know what? We're all cops, we're all guys, we're all gals, we're all people, and we say cop things, and look at the ass on her, ha! You know, and you know, those kinds of things. And then they get, that night it's on the news. You know? Check out the ass on her. Comments like that. Hey, someone take a shot at that guy, let's see if we can get a shot. I bet I can get him. You know, those kinds of comments, you know? It shouldn't be like that, and we all know better. We all know what we're like. We all live this. We know what the adventure's about. We know that if we can tag that guy from the 4th row that you owe me a beer. But that doesn't read well, and that doesn't do well in the press. So we've got to be cautious about being professional. We've got to be cautious about not being professional. We've got to be cautious about the things we say, the interactions we have. We don't want to challenge them. They're looking for that. They're looking for that bait. They're looking for us to say things. We've got good video footage. We've got a staff sergeant from the RCMP who gets into a stupid contest. The guy's saying, well, if you really believed in those things, you'd be over here with us. Policeman responds, oh yeah? Boy, he zinged him. He gave him, oh yeah! So, we've got to, it's not our spot. We don't need to get into these verbal confrontations. What do we win? You know, it's like into the standoff. We'll get into this thing. Well, what do we win? We get into a stare down. We'll look away. Ha! I won. Well, so, you know, one of the issues that we got to understand that if we get into a stare down, what are we doing? We're engaging him. What have we lost sight of? The bigger picture. Self-control and discipline. Self-control and discipline. During the Summit of Americas in Quebec City, we had 2,000 people online. We had people who were deployed, who were online for 14, 16 hours, who ended up having to use their pants as their toilet. We had people who couldn't move. We had really, really poor coverage and resources. However, the guys that were front lines maintained their discipline. We have a guy standing on point in full kit. Some asshole comes out of a window two stories up and throws a chunk of cement on his head. Hits him, knocks him to the ground, no one reacts. Cops, yes, you wanna. Cops stood their position, guys came in, grabbed him, brought him up, a replacement was brought in, he was taken back, he suffered a minor concussion, bit of neck damage because of the cement hitting him. But they didn't get their moment, and every moment like that is a moment against these protesters. Every reaction that the coppers take into this situation is one for them.
My question is, where do you come up with 2,000 police officers?
Well, for these planned events, you bring them in. Like we have the RCMP, we have Quebec, the Surette, which is the provincial police in Quebec. You have the OPP, which Lent, and we send members from OPP. The Ontario.
This song, rap song.
Don't go there.
All right. We started leading us down that Smarty road again. We work cooperatively, and we cross-train with many other departments for these kinds of big organized planned events.
Doing that training stuff again.
But you know what, when I was Bill Edgar,
There'd be a
from Orlando.
riot amongst the police around here.
What's that, sorry?
There'd be a riot amongst the police if we tried to get 2,000 police from all different agencies around here trying to get them to do it.
Did the same thing?
How many did you have in Washington?
3,500.
Yeah.
I wasn't there, was it a cluster or was it?
There was nobody there. Oh, you mean talking about the police officers?
Yeah.
Oh, we were just all happy to.
See, that happens every year in Florida. Daytona. Bill Edgar, who's here next week, it's a copper from Orlando, and in Daytona they bring cops in from all over. Yeah.
Going back to this concrete thing, I don't mean to try to upstage you, but I see that as a problem right there. They see somebody throw a
They
rock
didn't
out of
see
the
it.
building.
Okay.
Well, the protesters, you've got a line and
Yeah.
you're facing somebody. You're there for a reason. Some of these people are looking at you.
Yeah.
People that are looking at you, they see somebody throw a rock out of the window,
Yeah.
knock a cop out,
Yeah.
and the cops don't react.
Well,
Wow, if they don't react to that, what can I do that's not going to react?
All right,
to it?
but how are you going to react reasonably? If you have the coppers here, the protesters there, it's not like quiet and silent. They're yelling. These guys are huffing and puffing inside their kit and gear. They're hot. They're sweating. There's all this noise going on. All of a sudden, boom! Someone goes down. Well, they're not watching that. That gets caught on video. So
They know
how
where the rock came from, right?
they knew it came from above, but the guy didn't stand there and wave afterwards. It wasn't until they did the video stuff after that these kinds of things were picked up. Did they respond to that? Yeah, absolutely they did. Did they do something? Yeah, absolutely they did. But they didn't lash out at the crowd.
No, nobody's suggesting that.
Yeah.
But you can't let acts like that go unchallenged.
Oh no, it wasn't, and I'll show you the video footage of when they caught him.
That's what.
The question is, did you show the public the video footage?
No,
This is what happened, this is how it happened, we didn't get him then, but we got him now, so let's
no, the
try
public
to fix it.
response was that the individual responsible for that action has been arrested and has been charged. The video footage that actually made the news, they didn't know what they were filming. When he was
Subdued.
arrested,
Kinda like
they didn't
you
know
got
what they were
thrown out,
filming.
yeah.
And I'll show you the video footage of that. They called it a kidnapping. Yes, no, I'm on the same page. Yes, he was dealt with. What my point is that lashing out at the crowd because of that is an inappropriate response. Did we deal with it? Yes, it got dealt with. Was he removed? Was he eliminated? I wouldn't for 1 minute suggest that we don't respond to that. Yeah, we need to respond. We need to respond in an appropriate, measured fashion. And an appropriate, measured fashion for that was to deal with the individual.
Every time,
Yes,
absolutely.
yeah, so yeah, we're on the same page now. Sorry, there was some
Yeah,
confusion.
we understood that. Oh, okay, he stood there.
No. Yes, dealing with the right, with the guys dealing with the crowd.
Right, that's the main
Yeah.
one.
We have, we have a group called FIT. FIT, F-I-T, FIT, Field Intelligence Teams. And the field intelligence teams are the part that we talk about, and I've talked about throughout, the people within the crowd. People that are there within the crowd, working the crowd. And our FIT guys are the ones that we leave that to.
How do they communicate with you to what they are overhearing or intelligence they're gathering without being timed out?
Cell phone.
Yeah, everyone's got a cell phone.
Everyone's got a cell phone.
They talking,
And they're not talking to me directly. When I'm out on the street controlling and patrolling and doing those kinds of things, they don't talk to me. When I'm working, when I'm running an event, I will have a 2. And we are separate from those teams. We'll have our teams, but because I'm running the event, I have a 2, and the 2 of us are running independent of all 3 teams because my job is to take Group A and Group B and do this and do that, and I'm the chess player of all of these groups. And so the FIT guys will get a hold of Command. Command will call my 2 because we each have a different radio that we're working on. I'm working on a radio that deals with all of the protest coppers, the cops that are dealing with the protesters. I'd like Team A to move forward to the Shell building. Team B, go and have a quick coffee. I want you back in 3 minutes, or a quick pee or whatever, and I'm doing all of this. The 2IC is getting a phone call now, or a radio call from FIT through the command, and the command will tell my 2IC, just be advised, FIT has told us that we've got 2 guys